The man on the cold station floor looked like his life had shattered between two train tracks, and nobody cared enough to look twice. People stepped around him, tossed irritated glances, tightened their scarves, and hurried past like he was part of the shadows. Everyone except Lonnie, a quiet 6-year-old clutching her mother's last $5. Money meant for dinner that night. A crumpled bill. A fallen stranger. A tiny girl with a heart bigger than her hunger. She had no idea that $5 would uncover a billionaire's deepest secret, crack open a wounded man's guarded world, and change her mother's life forever. What followed would reveal an empire built on pain and prove that sometimes the smallest gestures carry the greatest power. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. Mommy, he's sad. 3 words that would crack open a billionaire's heart and rewrite everything Rosa Benitez thought she knew about mercy, money, and miracles. But first, there was the cold. It was the kind of February morning that made your bones ache, the kind where exhaled breath turned to fog and commuters became faceless shadows rushing through Grand Central Station like ghosts chasing trains they couldn't afford to miss. Briefcases clicked. Heels echoed. Coffee cups steamed in gloved hands. And somewhere near track 14, slumped against a grimy pillar like yesterday's forgotten newspaper, sat a man the world had decided wasn't worth noticing. His coat was torn at the shoulder. His hands trembled, not from the cold, but from something deeper, something that looked like grief wearing skin. A spilled coffee cup pooled beside him, brown liquid seeping into cracked tile, ignored by 1,000 passing feet. No one stopped. No one asked. No one saw him. Except Lonnie. 6 years old. Brown eyes too observant for her age. Small fingers wrapped around a wrinkled $5 bill. Her mother's last money until Friday. Money meant for rice, eggs, maybe bread if they were lucky. She had no idea whose life she was touching. She had no idea that $5 would become the thread that unraveled a secret worth $18 billion. Before the stranger. Before the money. Before everything changed, there was Rosa Benitez, and the life she'd built with duct tape and devotion. She cleaned other people's dreams for a living. 6 days a week, sometimes 7, Rosa moved through Manhattan penthouses like a ghost with a mop. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Marble countertops that cost more than her yearly rent. Walk-in closets bigger than her entire apartment, filled with clothes that still had tags on them. Bought, forgotten, replaced. She scrubbed toilets made of Italian porcelain. She polished floors so clean you could see your reflection. And Rosa tried not to look too long at hers. Tried not to think about the woman staring back. 34 years old, hands cracked from bleach, dark circles under her eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. A woman who worked herself to exhaustion and still couldn't afford to breathe easy. Her daughter, Lonnie, was her whole world. Bright. Soft-spoken. The kind of child who noticed when the subway musician played off-key, when the bodega cat limped on its left paw, when her mother's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Lonnie dreamed of becoming a painter. She filled notebook margins with sketches. Birds, buildings, her mother's tired hands holding coffee cups. Her paintbrushes were dollar store finds that frayed after 2 uses. She never complained. Never asked why other kids had full art sets while she had 3 dried-out markers and hope. But some things required money. Like Lonnie's asthma inhaler. $3.40 without insurance, which Rosa didn't have. Like rent, 3 weeks overdue, landlord's notes getting less polite by the day. Like groceries that weren't just rice and canned beans. Rosa's inner voice asked the question that haunted her every night. How do I raise a child with hope when my own life feels hopeless? How do you teach your daughter to dream when you're drowning? The freezing Thursday morning started like any other slow disaster. Rosa had just finished a night shift at the Vanderbilt penthouse. 12 hours of scrubbing, organizing, pretending not to exist while the family fought about which European vacation to take. Her body ached. Her eyelids felt weighted with stones. Lonnie waited for her in the building service lobby, backpack on, drawing pad clutched to her chest, trying not to yawn. "Mommy," she whispered when Rosa appeared. I drew you a surprise. Rosa's heart cracked a little. Show me on the train, mi amor. We're running late. They rushed through morning crowds to Grand Central. The 6:47 to Brooklyn. The train that would take them home, where Rosa could collapse for 3 hours before her afternoon shift started. Their train was delayed. 20 minutes. Lonnie's stomach growled softly. She pressed a hand against it, embarrassed, and Rosa pretended not to notice. The $5 in her pocket was supposed to buy them breakfast. 2 egg sandwiches from the cart vendor who gave her extra napkins because he had a daughter Lonnie's age. Can we sit, Mommy? Lonnie asked. Not yet, baby. Let's stay close to the platform. That's when Lonnie saw him. The man near track 14. Collapsed against the pillar like something discarded. Hair messy. Face hidden behind shadow and unwashed exhaustion. The hospital bracelet on his wrist caught fluorescent light. White plastic against pale skin. People walked by without slowing. A woman in a business suit stepped over his outstretched leg without breaking stride. A teenage boy laughed and whispered something to his friend. But Lonnie stopped. Mommy, he's sad. Rosa sighed, bone-deep tired. Sometimes people just need space, mi amor. But nobody's helping him. We can't help everyone, Lonnie. Why not? Because we barely have enough to help ourselves, Rosa wanted to say. Because kindness is expensive and we're broke. Because the world doesn't reward people like us for caring. But before she could form the words, Lonnie was already walking toward him. Small boots clicking on tile. Determined steps. Fearless in the way only children can be. Lonnie, wait. Sir. Lonnie's voice was barely audible over the station noise. Are you okay? The man lifted his head slowly, like it weighed 1,000 pounds. His eyes were red, not from substances, but from something older. Something like loss. Like the kind of pain that doesn't wash away with sleep. His voice cracked. I'm fine. Thank you. You don't look fine, Lonnie said simply. Rosa rushed forward, embarrassed, terrified. I am so sorry, she doesn't understand boundaries, we'll just... Then she saw it. The hospital bracelet. Her stomach dropped. The man noticed her stare and turned away quickly, shame flooding his face. Lonnie reached into her jacket pocket. No, Lonnie. Rosa's voice was sharp with panic. But Lonnie had already pulled out the crumpled $5 bill, the only thing standing between them and hunger today, and placed it gently on the man's knee. Here, she whispered. For food. Or medicine. Or something to help. He stared at the money like it was a grenade. I can't. His voice broke completely. I can't take this. It's okay, Lonnie said with devastating sincerity. You can have it. My mom says when people hurt, somebody should help. Rosa felt tears sting her eyes. She hadn't said that, not exactly. But it was the kind of thing she wanted her daughter to believe. Even if the world proved otherwise every single day. The man's hand trembled as he touched the bill. I was going to buy breakfast, Lonnie continued. But I'm not that hungry. And you look like you need it more. The announcement echoed. Brooklyn line arriving, track 14. We have to go, Rosa whispered, gently taking Lonnie's hand. The stranger looked up, and for the first time, Rosa saw his face clearly. Young. Maybe early 30s. Handsome beneath the exhaustion. Eyes that held intelligence and devastation in equal measure. Thank you, he whispered. You have no idea what this means. Lonnie smiled. I hope you feel happy soon. They boarded the train. Rosa guided Lonnie to a window seat, heart still racing, mind still processing what just happened. She glanced back through the scratched glass. The man was still there. Still holding the $5 bill like it was something sacred. Still watching them with an expression Rosa couldn't name. The train lurched forward. He disappeared into the crowd. Rosa exhaled slowly, telling herself it was over. Just another brief intersection of strangers in a city built on them. Just another moment of kindness that would fade into the noise of survival. She assumed they'd never see him again. But stories like this don't end so quietly. Not when the broken man your daughter saved is worth $18 billion. Not when mercy becomes a mirror. And not when a single act of kindness is about to rewrite 3 lives forever. His real name wasn't written on the hospital bracelet. It wasn't printed in the newspaper articles about mental health crises among the wealthy. It wasn't whispered by the commuters who stepped over him like human debris. But it should have been. Alec James Donovan. Age 32. Founder and majority shareholder of Donovan Dynamics, a clean energy empire that had revolutionized solar grid technology across 4 continents. Worth $18.3 billion on paper. Featured in Forbes 30 Under 30 at 24. Called a visionary by Time magazine. Called ruthless by competitors. Called broken by no one, because no one had bothered to look. 3 weeks before the train station, Alec had been standing in a different kind of cold. The sterile chill of a boardroom on the 47th floor of his own building, watching his younger brother, Marcus, attempt a corporate coup. The board has concerns about your stability, Alec. Marcus's voice had been smooth, practiced, laced with false concern. You've missed meetings. You're erratic. Frankly, you're becoming a liability to shareholder confidence. 12 board members sat in silence. Not one defended him. Not one asked if he was okay. They just waited to see which brother would win, like spectators at a gladiator fight they'd paid to watch. Alec had built this company from a dorm room idea and a maxed-out credit card. He'd worked 100-hour weeks for 8 years straight. Sacrificed relationships, health, sleep, sanity, everything, to turn a dream about sustainable energy into a global force. And his own brother was trying to take it away while he was still recovering from exhaustion-induced cardiac arrhythmia. You want my company? Alec had whispered, voice hoarse. Take it. I don't care anymore. He'd walked out. Discharged himself from the hospital 2 days later against medical advice. Stopped answering his phone. Threw his wallet in a trash can on Fifth Avenue because he couldn't stand looking at the black Amex card anymore. Wandered the streets until his feet bled through his $1,000 shoes. And ended up on the floor of Grand Central Station. Billionaire reduced to ghost, emperor stripped to human, waiting to see if anyone would notice. They hadn't. Except one 6-year-old girl who didn't know his name, his net worth, or his empire. She just saw someone who needed help. Alec had always known wealth was isolating. But he hadn't understood the full weight of that isolation until he sat on that cold station floor, invisible. People only see your worth when you're winning. When you're on magazine covers, they want photos. When you're signing deals, they want handshakes. When you're donating millions, they want speeches. But when you're collapsing, when the mask cracks and the human bleeds through, silence, avoidance, the assumption that someone else will handle it, someone paid to care. Alec had spent 8 years surrounded by people. Assistants, lawyers, consultants, investors, journalists. Thousands of contacts in his phone. Hundreds of employees who depended on him. And not one person he could call a friend. Not one person who'd asked, "Are you okay?" and meant it. His relationships were transactional. His value was conditional. His humanity was an inconvenience to the machine he'd built. Even his own family saw him as an asset to manage or a threat to eliminate. He had billions in the bank and nothing in his chest but an aching void that no acquisition could fill. Sitting on that station floor, Alec had wanted to disappear completely. Not die. Just stop existing in the way he'd been forced to exist. Stop performing. Stop producing. Stop pretending he was anything more than exhausted. And then a child's voice had broken through. "Sir, are you okay?" 3 words. Genuine concern. No agenda. No transaction. No ulterior motive. Just kindness. The moment the $5 bill touched his knee, something inside Alec Donovan cracked open. Not broke, cracked. Like ice on a frozen lake when spring begins. He stared at that crumpled bill, worn, folded, probably passed through 100 hands, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Seen. This child, who clearly had nothing, was giving him everything she had. Not because she knew who he was. Not because she expected anything in return. But because she believed people should help when people hurt. Her mother had tried to stop her, embarrassed, apologetic, protective, and Alec understood why. The world taught people like them to keep their heads down, their kindness guarded, their resources hidden. But this little girl hadn't learned that lesson yet. Or maybe she'd learned a better one. My mom says when people hurt, somebody should help. Alec had spent $180 million on a marketing campaign last year. He'd donated $50 million to climate research. He'd written checks that moved decimal points most people would never see in their lifetimes. But none of it had meant what this $5 meant. Because this wasn't charity. This wasn't strategy. This wasn't tax-deductible goodwill. This was sacrifice. This was a child choosing his pain over her own hunger. And it shattered every carefully constructed wall he'd built around his heart. Alec didn't return to his penthouse that night. He checked into a modest hotel under a fake name, showered for the first time in days, and sat on the edge of the bed holding that $5 bill like it was a treasure map. He needed to know who they were. Not to invade their privacy, but to understand what kind of person raised a child like that. What kind of life produced that kind of courage. It took his head of security less than 4 hours. Rosa Benitez. Age 34. Single mother. Immigrant. Housemaid working for Elite Home Services. Ironically, one of the companies contracted to clean Donovan Dynamics executive offices. The report was clinical, factual, devastating. Income. $32,000 per year before taxes. Rent. $1,400 per month, currently 3 weeks overdue. Debt. $4,200, medical bills for daughter's asthma treatment. Savings. $0. Support system. None listed. Alec read it twice, stomach twisting. She'd given him her last $5. Her last $5. And he'd almost refused it. He sat at the hotel desk, pulled out stationery, and wrote by hand. Your daughter reminded me that humanity still exists. Tell her the world needs people like her. A friend. He enclosed a check for $25,000. Not enough to insult. Enough to breathe. Rent. Medicine. Breathing room her life had never allowed. He had his assistant hand-deliver it to her apartment building at dawn. Envelope slipped quietly under the door. No return address. No follow-up. No expectation. Just the overwhelming need to give back what she'd given him. Hope. Rosa found the envelope on her way out to her 6 a.m. shift. At first, she thought it was another eviction notice. Her hands shook as she tore it open, Lonnie still asleep in the bedroom, morning light barely creeping through their small window. The check slipped out. Rosa stared. Blinked. Read the number again. $25,000. Her knees buckled. She dropped to the floor, one hand over her mouth, the other clutching the paper like it might evaporate. This isn't real. This is a scam. This is a mistake. But the check was real. Professionally printed, signed, legitimate. And the note. Your daughter reminded me that humanity still exists. Rosa's chest heaved with sobs she'd been holding back for months. Years, maybe. The kind of crying that comes from deep exhaustion finally meeting unexpected mercy. She couldn't move. Couldn't think. Couldn't process. $25,000. Rent. Medicine. Food. Time. Air. But even as relief flooded her, fear crept in behind it. Who sends this kind of money? What do they want? Is this legal? What if it's stolen? What if accepting it puts Lonnie in danger? She sat on the floor for 20 minutes, paralyzed between gratitude and terror. "Mommy." Lonnie's small voice came from the bedroom doorway. She padded over in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Why are you crying?" Rosa quickly wiped her face. "I'm okay, mi amor. Just tired." Lonnie tilted her head, studying the envelope in her mother's hand. "Did the sad man send it?" Rosa's breath caught. How did she know? I don't know, baby. I think he did." Lonnie sat down beside her, small and certain. "I think he wanted to help you like I helped him." Rosa pulled her daughter close, unable to speak. Because maybe Lonnie was right. And maybe that terrified her most of all. Rosa hadn't slept in 3 days. Not real sleep anyway. Just restless half-dreams where $25,000 checks turned to dust in her hands and strangers knocked on her door demanding answers she didn't have. The money sat untouched in her drawer, folded inside the envelope like evidence of a crime she hadn't committed but couldn't explain. She'd called the bank. They confirmed it was real, legitimate, cleared funds. She'd Googled anonymous large gifts legal at 2 a.m. until her eyes burned. She'd prayed, panicked, and promised herself she'd figure it out after work. Because work didn't stop for miracles or mysteries. Thursday morning, Elite Home Services sent her the weekly schedule. 6 apartments. 12 hours. The usual rotation of marble floors and people who'd never learned her name. Except one address she didn't recognize. The Altitude. Penthouse 47C. New client. Special request. Rosa's supervisor had called personally. "This one's important, Rosa. High profile. He specifically requested our best. Don't mess it up." She'd nodded, exhausted, wondering what high profile meant this time. Hedge fund manager? Tech CEO? Another person whose yearly bonus could pay her rent for a decade? She arrived at the Altitude at 9 a.m. sharp. A glass tower in Midtown that reflected clouds like it owned the sky. Security checked her ID twice. When Lonnie finally pulled back, she was beaming. "Can I show you my drawings?" "I would love that," Alex said. "But maybe later. I need to talk to your mom first." Lonnie nodded solemnly and skipped toward the windows, enchanted by the view and her new necklace. Alex stood slowly, facing Rosa. The air between them felt charged. Not romantic but significant. Heavy with unspoken things. "I know this is overwhelming," Alex said quietly. "And I don't want to make your life more complicated. But I need you to know, the money has no strings. You don't owe me anything. Not your time. Not your gratitude. Not your trust." Rosa's voice came out hoarse. "Then why?" "Because your daughter gave me something priceless when I had nothing. And because I've spent 8 years surrounding myself with people who only valued what I could give them. You're the first person in a long time who didn't want anything from me." He hesitated, vulnerability flickering across his face. "I'd like to see you both again. Not as a client. Not as charity. Just as people. If you're willing." Rosa's mind screamed warnings. This is too much. Too fast. Too complicated. He's a billionaire. You're a maid. This doesn't make sense. But her heart whispered something different. He sees you. Not your job. Not your struggle. You. "I don't know what this is," Rosa admitted. "Neither do I," Alex said honestly. "But I'd like to find out. If you'll let me." Silence stretched between them. Fragile, uncertain, crackling with possibility. Then Lonnie's voice rang out from across the room. "Mommy, can we come back? He has real paint." Despite everything, Rosa laughed. A broken, exhausted, genuine sound. Alex smiled. Really smiled. The kind that reached his eyes and erased years of carefully maintained distance. "You didn't just save me at the station," he said quietly. "You reminded me how to be human. How to feel something other than empty. Your daughter gave me $5 and hope. I'm just trying to return one of those things." Rosa looked at him, really looked, and saw not a billionaire or a stranger or a charity case. Just a man who'd been drowning and found a lifeline in the least likely place. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay. You can see us again." Something shifted in the air between them. Not love, not yet, but something equally powerful. Connection. The fragile beginning of trust. And the quiet, terrifying hope that maybe, just maybe, kindness could rewrite more than one life. It could rewrite 3. It started small. Tuesday afternoons at PS 118's cafeteria, where first graders displayed crayon masterpieces on crooked construction paper taped to cinderblock walls. Alec Donovan, billionaire CEO, clean energy revolutionary, man who'd addressed the United Nations twice, sat in a child-sized plastic chair, knees nearly touching his chest, studying Lonnie's drawing of a blue bird with utterly serious attention. "The shading here," he said, pointing to where she'd layered different blues. "That's advanced technique for your age." Lonnie beamed. "Ms. Rodriguez says I see colors different." "She's right." Rosa watched from across the cafeteria, heart doing complicated things she couldn't name. This man, who could afford any art in the world, was looking at her daughter's work like it belonged in a museum. And he kept showing up. Not with gifts. Not with grand gestures. Just presence. He came to Lonnie's school art show on a Thursday when he should have been in Seattle closing a $400 million deal. He rescheduled. Didn't mention it. Just appeared in the cafeteria wearing jeans and a simple sweater, looking almost normal except for the $60,000 watch he'd forgotten to take off. He brought Rosa coffee the way she actually liked it. Light, 2 sugars, from the bodega near her apartment, not some pretentious cafe. He asked about her day and listened to the answer. He learned Lonnie's favorite color, turquoise. Her biggest fear, that her mom worked too hard. Her impossible dream, painting something people would remember. And slowly, carefully, like spring thawing winter, something real began growing between the 3 of them. Conversations stretched longer. Silences became comfortable. Lonnie started calling him Mr. Alec, with the kind of affection reserved for favorite uncles. Rosa started letting her guard down in millimeter increments. They met for walks in Central Park on Sunday mornings, Rosa's only day off. Alec would bring sketchbooks for Lonnie and pastries he'd picked up himself, insisting on carrying Rosa's bag even when she protested. They talked about everything and nothing. Rosa told him about her childhood in Guatemala, the journey north, the mother she'd lost to cancer before Lonnie was born. Alec told her about building his company from obsession and desperation, the loneliness of success, the weight of expectations he'd never asked for. Lonnie drew them both over and over, filling pages with 3 figures. Tall man, tired woman, small girl. Always together. Always smiling. But late at night, when Lonnie was asleep and Rosa lay staring at the ceiling of their small apartment, fear crept in like frost. This can't last. He's a billionaire. You're a maid. He lives in the sky. You live paycheck to paycheck. What happens when he gets bored? When the novelty of slumming it with real people wears off? What happens when Lonnie gets attached and he disappears? She'd seen enough movies, read enough stories. She knew how these things ended. Powerful men playing at compassion until real life called them back to their real world. And she couldn't afford to let Lonnie's heart break. Couldn't afford to let her own break either. Meanwhile, Alec faced his own demons. He'd returned to Donovan Dynamics after the train station incident, reclaimed his board seat, quietly outmaneuvered his brother's attempted coup with the ruthless efficiency that had built his empire. Marcus was gone. The board was chastened. The company was his again. But none of it meant what it used to. The penthouse felt emptier. The deals felt hollower. The success felt like noise. Because every Tuesday afternoon sitting in that plastic chair, every Sunday morning walk in the park, every time Lonnie grabbed his hand without hesitation or Rosa laughed at something stupid he said, that felt real. But he was terrified Rosa would reject him if she truly understood the scope of his world. The wealth. The influence. The complications. The fact that he could buy her building with pocket change. The fact that one phone call could change her entire life. The fact that he was fundamentally, unavoidably different from her in ways that money made impossible to bridge. And deeper, darker, the fear that he was too broken to deserve this. That his mental collapse, his corporate ruthlessness, his years of emotional isolation had damaged something essential. That he'd contaminate their gentle, genuine connection with his own brokenness. Lonnie, meanwhile, had no conflicts at all. She simply loved him. Uncomplicated. Pure. Complete. The way only children can love, without calculation, without fear, without the weight of past disappointments. She drew him into every family picture. She saved her best paintings to show him first. She asked Rosa one night before bed, "Is Mr. Alec going to be my dad?" And Rosa's heart had stopped completely. It happened on a Wednesday evening, 6 weeks after the train station. Rosa had finally agreed to have dinner at Alec's penthouse. Just the three of them, nothing formal, Lonnie's compromise for trying sushi. After dinner, Lonnie sprawled on the floor with new art supplies Alec had casually left out. He'd learned not to give things directly. Rosa's pride had boundaries. Alec and Rosa stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city glittering 47 floors below like scattered diamonds. "I need to tell you something," Alec said quietly. Rosa's stomach dropped. "Here it comes. The ending I've been expecting. I haven't been completely honest with you." She braced herself. "You know I own Donovan Dynamics. You know I'm wealthy." He said the word like it tasted bitter. "But you don't know the scope. You don't know what that actually means." He pulled out his phone, pulled up a Forbes article, handed it to her. Alec Donovan, the $18 billion clean energy king. Rosa stared at the number until it stopped meaning anything. 18 billion. She couldn't conceptualize it, couldn't fit it into her understanding of reality. "I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, Alec continued, voice hollow. "I employ 12,000 people across 6 countries. I've met presidents. I've been called a genius, a visionary, a ruthless bastard, all probably true." He turned to face her directly. "But none of it made me happy. None of it made me feel human. I built this empire thinking it would fill something inside me, and instead it just hollowed me out until there was nothing left but the work." His voice cracked. "My own brother tried to destroy me when I showed weakness. The board I hand-selected would have voted me out without blinking. I had everything anyone could want and no one who actually saw me." Rosa's throat tightened. "And then your daughter, this 6-year-old girl with nothing, gave me her last $5 because she thought I needed it. She didn't see a CEO. She didn't see dollar signs. She saw a person in pain and decided that mattered." Alec's eyes glistened. "You and Lonnie were the first people in 8 years to see me as just Alec. Not Alec Donovan, billionaire. Not the founder. Not the asset. Just a broken man who needed kindness." He stepped closer. "So yes, I have obscene wealth. Yes, I could change your life with a phone call. Yes, our worlds are completely different on paper." His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "But you're the only person who makes me feel like I'm worth something outside all of that. And I'm terrified you'll decide the money makes this impossible." Silence hung between them, heavy with everything unsaid. Rosa looked at this man, this impossibly wealthy, impossibly broken, impossibly present man, and felt her careful walls crumbling. "I could walk away," she thought. "Protect myself. Protect Lonnie. Stay in my world where things make sense." But then she looked at her daughter, sprawling on a billionaire's floor with paint on her fingers and joy on her face, completely unaware that money was supposed to matter. She thought about the Tuesday afternoons Alec never missed. The coffee he brought her, bodega coffee, not expensive coffee, because he paid attention. The way he listened when she talked about her day, like cleaning other people's toilets, was work worth respecting. The way he looked at Lonnie's art like it mattered. The way he'd been there, not with money, but with time. The one thing wealthy people usually hoarded most. "You're right," Rosa said finally. "Our worlds are different." Alec's face fell. "But I don't care about your world," she continued. "I care about who you are when you're in mine." His breath caught. "You show up, Alec. You see my daughter, really see her. You treat me like I'm worth your time, not your charity. You've never once made me feel small, even though you could buy my entire life 1,000 times over." Her voice strengthened. "I'm scared too. Scared you'll wake up one day and realize we're too complicated. Too ordinary. Too much work." She stepped closer. "But Lonnie already loves you. And I—" She hesitated, then pushed through. "I'm starting to trust you. And that terrifies me more than the money ever could." Tears streamed down her face now. "So if you're asking whether I can accept you, billionaire, broken, complicated, the answer is yes. But you have to accept us too. All our mess. All our limitations. All the ways we'll never fit into your penthouse world." Alec closed the distance between them and took her hands gently. "You are my world now," he whispered. "Both of you. Everything else is just noise." 2 weeks later, everything changed in the space of 10 terrifying minutes. It was a Saturday morning. Alec had taken them to the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens. Lonnie wanted to paint the cherry blossoms. She was laughing, running ahead on the path, when suddenly she stopped, bent over, gasping. Rosa's entire world narrowed to one sound. Her daughter struggling to breathe. "Lonnie!" She sprinted forward, already digging through her bag for the inhaler. "Please be there, please be there, please." Gone. She'd forgotten to refill the prescription. Panic swallowed her whole. Lonnie's lips were turning blue. Alec was already calling 911, voice sharp and controlled despite the terror in his eyes. 6-year-old asthma attack, Brooklyn Botanical Gardens. We need an ambulance now. He knelt beside Lonnie, keeping her calm with a steady voice while Rosa held her daughter, whispering prayers in Spanish. The ambulance arrived in 4 minutes that felt like hours. EMTs administered oxygen. Loaded Lonnie onto a gurney. Alec rode with them to the hospital, hand gripping Rosa's while she held Lonnie's, the three of them connected like a lifeline. In the ER, while doctors stabilized Lonnie, Rosa broke. Completely. She collapsed in the waiting room chair, sobbing into her hands, the weight of every fear she'd been carrying finally crushing her. "I forgot," she gasped. "I forgot to refill it. I could've, she could've." "Stop." Alec knelt in front of her, hands on her shoulders. "This is not your fault. You're doing everything alone. You're exhausted. You're allowed to be human. I'm her mother. And you're the best mother I've ever seen," Alec said fiercely. "Lonnie is okay. The doctors said she'll be fine. You got help. That's what matters." Rosa looked up at him through tears, and saw not a billionaire, not a CEO, not someone trying to fix her problems with money, just a man who was terrified too, who'd ridden in that ambulance like Lonnie was his daughter, who'd held Rosa's hand like letting go would destroy him, who was there, fully, completely, emotionally present. "I can't do this alone anymore," Rosa whispered. "You don't have to," Alec said. "I'm not going anywhere." 3 months later, Lonnie's painting hung in the window of the Brooklyn Community Art Center. Her first public exhibition. The piece showed 3 figures on a train platform. A small girl, a tired woman, and a man sitting against a pillar. The title, written in Lonnie's careful handwriting, "The Day Everything Changed." Rosa stood beside Alec, watching visitors study her daughter's work. So much had shifted. Alec had offered Rosa a position managing workplace wellness programs at Donovan Dynamics. Not charity, but a role perfectly suited to someone who understood struggle and dignity. Salary: $78,000. Benefits: full. Respect: Unconditional. She'd accepted. Not because she needed saving, but because she deserved opportunity. Alec had also connected Lonnie with a mentorship program at Pratt Institute. Young artists learning from professionals. Not buying her success, but opening doors her talent deserved access to. And slowly, carefully, the three of them had built something that looked like family. Not perfect. Not easy. Not without complications. But real. Alex still struggled with his mental health. Therapy twice a week, medication, learning that vulnerability wasn't weakness. Rosa still struggled with accepting help. Years of self-reliance didn't dissolve overnight. But they struggled together now. And Lonnie. She painted everything. The train station. The park. The penthouse. The small apartment. All of it beautiful. All of it worth remembering. "What are you thinking?" Alec asked softly, watching Rosa study the painting. She smiled. "That I almost didn't let her give you that $5. I'm glad you did." "Me too." Lonnie ran over, paint smudges on her face, grinning. "Mrs. Chen wants to buy my painting. For real money." Rosa's eyes widened. "What did you tell her?" "I said I have to ask my parents first." "My parents." Rosa's breath caught. Alec's hand found hers, squeezed gently. "What do you think, Mommy?" Lonnie asked. "Should I sell it or keep it?" Rosa knelt down, tucking a strand of hair behind her daughter's ear. "What do you think, mi amor?" Lonnie considered seriously. "I think I should keep it. Because it's the most important thing I ever made. It's about us." "Then keep it," Alex said. "You can always paint another. Will you help me?" He smiled, the real one, the one that erased years of loneliness. "Always." That night, back in Rosa's apartment, she'd kept it despite Alex's offers. Some independence was sacred. Lonnie fell asleep clutching her gold paintbrush necklace. Rosa and Alex sat on the small couch, shoulders touching, watching the city lights through the window. "Thank you," Rosa whispered. "For what?" "For seeing us. For staying. For being human." Alec turned to her, eyes soft with something that looked like peace. "You gave me my life back," he said quietly. "Both of you. That train station I was drowning. And your daughter threw me a lifeline disguised as $5. He paused. "I don't know what we're building here. I don't know if there's a word for it. But it feels like home." Rosa rested her head on his shoulder. "It is home," she said. And in a 2-room apartment in Brooklyn, between a maid who'd learned to accept help and a billionaire who'd learned to be human, a new kind of family took root. Not built on money. Not built on charity, but on the radical, revolutionary power of seeing someone's pain and choosing to care. Thank you so much for watching today's story. If it touched your heart, please hit the subscribe button and join our growing family of story lovers. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories to life. Share this video, leave a comment, and stay blessed. See you in the next one.